Ride the signal through the unknown. This is the cryptic current.
I wonder if everyone has ever experienced sleep paralysis? Consciousness remains clearly awake, but the body doesn't respond to control, as if something is pressing down on you. Wanting to move but unable to, wanting to struggle free but impossible. Some describe sleep paralysis as the scariest feeling in the world. But have you ever thought about what it would feel like to be sleep paralyzed for life? There is a disease even more terrifying than death. Ghost people. Because they feel as if their soul is trapped in a body that cannot move. The story begins with a TED Talk in 2015. This man with a radiant smile is Martin Pistorius, a patient with Lofton syndrome. He couldn't speak directly on stage, but with the help of computer equipment. He told his own story. So what exactly is this disease likened to lifelong sleep paralysis? Who is prone to this disease, and is there any way to treat it? Today, let's explore the disease scarier than death, Lofton syndrome. Hello everyone, I'm Miss Ruby. In 1975, Martin was born in Johannesburg, South Africa. For the first 12 years of his life, Martin was just as mischievous and active as other children. The turning point occurred in 1988, when Martin was not yet 13 years old. One afternoon, Martin asked to skip school due to a sore throat. But no one expected that from then on, Martin would never return to school. His condition rapidly worsened. Soon after, Martin's limbs became unable to move. Next, he lost the ability to speak, only able to express thoughts through eye movements. Then, even eye communication became impossible. Until finally, he lost consciousness and doctors diagnosed Martin with encephalitis. A year later, doctors gave up on treating Martin, assessing that he had become a vegetative person, with an IQ no different from a 3-month-old baby. Doctors informed Martin's family that, "Your son won't live for more than a few months, take him home. Let him comfortably spend the rest of his life." But contrary to everyone's expectations, Martin did not pass away within a few months. When he had been ill for 4 years, Martin's consciousness suddenly awoke within his body. And this seemed like an even greater disaster for Martin, because his body was completely unable to move, and no one knew that he had actually regained consciousness. And so, Martin became a ghost boy. He heard the news broadcast on TV, smelled the aroma of the food his mother was cooking, felt the breeze blowing from the yard, but couldn't express any of his emotions. No one knew that such a major change was happening inside Martin's body. From the outside, Martin was a vegetative person. Caring for a patient like this certainly placed a heavy burden on the family. Martin's parents, time and again, felt devastated and hopeless over their son's illness. And arguments increased. Once, after Martin's parents argued, Martin's mother ran up to him. He kept shaking and saying, "You must die, you absolutely must die." As mother didn't. The boy was hearing everything. His ears heard his mother telling him to die. The emotions at that moment could be imagined without needing to be described. At that time, no one knew that Martin had Lofton syndrome due to a brain hemorrhage. Lofton syndrome and vegetative state are two completely different concepts. In movies, we often see some scenes saying that vegetative patients can perceive everything outside, even shedding tears when hearing family members talk. But in real life, these scenarios never happen with vegetative patients. Clinically, vegetative patients are called persistent vegetative state, just as the name suggests. It's like a plant completely without consciousness. Even though body temperature, pulse, and blood pressure may be normal, This brain scan compared normal people, vegetative patients, and brain-dead people, and this one compares the differences between normal people, Locked-in syndrome patients, vegetative patients, and brain-dead people. From the brain scans, it could be seen locked-in syndrome patients seem to still have full consciousness. In the 1950s, cardiac arrest was considered death. Many people were vaguely placed in coffins. The grave was only half dug. The person in the coffin knocked loudly, kicked open the coffin lid, and sat up. Such cases of coming back to life also frequently occurred. In 1950, the invention of the first ventilator redefined the endpoint of life. The intensive care unit was thus born, and humans began to have the concept of brain death. In the 1960s, Fred Plum, an American neurologist, and Brian Jennett, a British neurologist, began conducting research and classifying patient consciousness, and they were the first to propose the term locked-in syndrome. Locked-in syndrome in English is called locked-in syndrome. It's used to describe the condition where patients have clear consciousness, but their bodies cannot move and they cannot speak. The symptoms of this disease feel like being haunted for a long time. 75% of locked-in syndrome cases are caused by cerebrovascular diseases. Additionally, head trauma, brain tumors, vasculitis, nervous system, myasthenia gravis, drug poisoning can all lead to locked-in syndrome. Regarding locked-in syndrome, the most famous case occurred in 1995. On December 8 of that year, Jean-Dominique Bova, editor-in-chief of French fashion magazine Elle, after suffering total body paralysis from a stroke, 20 days later, Bova's consciousness awoke in his body. At that time, only his left eyelid could move freely. The diving bell and the butterfly. The book describes his immobile body as a diving bell imprisoning his soul. His motionless body was like a diving bell locking up his soul, while his heart was like a butterfly flying freely. The diving bell and the butterfly. Exactly 3 days later, Augie passed away from pneumonia, and that butterfly finally escaped from the diving bell that had imprisoned his soul. The diving bell and the butterfly. And this rare disease began to be known by many people. In medical practice, patients with locked-in syndrome are often misdiagnosed as being in a vegetative state. Professor Plum's student, neurologist Nicholas Streep, conducted a survey. About 40% of patients diagnosed as vegetative actually retain some low. This consciousness is like a synthesis of sensory thoughts, a response to the objective world, but cannot be seen or touched. To this day, the medical community still debates about comatose patients. Who has consciousness and who does not? And we still don't fully understand how consciousness is formed. In typical cases, families of vegetative patients who give up treatment choose to remove feeding tubes and other life support devices, causing the patient to starve to death or injecting high doses of sedatives so they die in their sleep. But if these patients are not vegetative but have locked-in syndrome, with fully conscious minds, then this approach is clearly a death sentence for them. In 2019, the case of Frenchman Vincent Lambert's euthanasia death shocked the world. In 2008, after a motorcycle accident, Vincent fell into a coma with paralyzed limbs and had to be fed through a gastric tube. Vincent's wife, parents, and siblings eagerly hoped for his recovery. However, when Vincent opened his eyes, the family discovered he seemed to have no response to the outside world. After multiple hospital transfers in 2013, due to Vincent's brain damage being irreversible, doctors declared he would remain in a persistent vegetative state. Vincent's wife decided to withdraw treatment, but Vincent's siblings insisted he still had minimal consciousness. A 2015 video showed Vincent could move his eyes and perform swallowing motions. Regarding whether to continue treatment, Vincent's wife and parents had major disagreements, even leading to litigation. After 6 years of dispute, the French Supreme Court ruled that performing euthanasia on Vincent was legal. On July 11, 2019, Vincent was disconnected from life support. This case remains highly controversial to this day. Many believe that passive euthanasia was essentially a death sentence for Vincent. So what is the minimal consciousness state that Vincent's parents referred to? In 2002, Professor Brian Jernett proposed the concept of minimal consciousness state, used to describe patients who are occasionally awake, have partial consciousness but with unstable levels of awareness. Sometimes they can respond to external commands, but other times they cannot. This brain scan shows the brain of a patient in a minimal consciousness state. The introduction of this concept significantly reduced misdiagnosis between locked-in syndrome and vegetative state. At this point, people might wonder whether this desperate disease can be cured. In the journey to find ways to rescue those with the disease, one expert cannot be overlooked. That is Owen, a neurologist at Cambridge University in the United Kingdom. In 1997, Kate Bainbridge, a 26-year-old British teacher, after a bout of flu, she developed acute encephalomyelitis and fell into a coma. Most doctors at that time believed Kate had become a vegetable. However, like all patients with locked-in syndrome, after a few months, Kate's consciousness awakened within her body. Fortunately, Kate met Adrian Owen, a neuroscientist from Cambridge University, who was conducting research at the hospital where Kate was being treated. Owen's team wanted to explore whether vegetative patients had hidden consciousness, and Kate became their first research subject. Owen performed a PET scan on Kate. When staff placed a family photo in front of Kate, like a normal person, her visual cortex was activated. The red spot in the brain scan results represented activity in the occipital gyrus, the brain region responsible for facial recognition in humans. The brain scan results brought hope to Kate's family and changed her fate. From then on, her family followed an intensive treatment plan. 6 months later, Kate was able to control some facial muscles and could smile to express joy. Later, the research team conducted a test to assess Kate's intelligence level, discovering her IQ was no different from that of a normal person. In the early years, Kate made good progress but still couldn't speak. She used her finger to point at letters to form sentences. After 12 years of intensive treatment, Kate can now speak. Neuroscientist Owen said locked-in syndrome is like being trapped in a box that fits your body perfectly. When you wake up, you find yourself stuck in this sealed box. From inside the box, you can see everything around you, but your voice cannot escape the box. At first, you feel like this is some strange game. You have plenty of time to think about it. But then, you hear relatives, friends, and doctors lamenting your pitiful fate. They even think you're beyond saving. People say prolonged illness tests even the most filial children. The closest relatives might forget to give you medicine in the middle of the night after 6 months. They also forget to turn on the TV for you. Caregivers might pour hot soup and spoiled rice directly into your mouth, because they think you no longer feel anything at all. You lie in the box, struggling desperately, but your screams and movements go unnoticed outside. And facing all this, you can do nothing. This is the helplessness of someone with locked-in syndrome. In 2006, Owen and colleagues performed functional MRI on a patient diagnosed as vegetative after a car accident named Gillian. This technique can detect small fluctuations in blood flow to locate activated areas in the cerebrum. Owen asked a healthy person to imagine playing tennis. They found the supplementary motor area was activated. Owen then asked this healthy person to imagine walking around a room. They discovered activation in the parahippocampal gyrus, hippocampus, and lateral premotor cortex. The cerebral regions activated through these two activity patterns were completely different. Then, Owen asked Gillian, the patient diagnosed as vegetative, To imagine playing tennis and walking around a room. The functional MRI showed Gillian's brain activation locations were almost identical to those of normal people. In September 2006, Owen published this discovery in the journal Science. Its title was The article, once published, caused a major shockwave. Most people believed Owen's discovery made a superior contribution to distinguishing between locked-in syndrome patients and vegetative patients, as well as their treatment methods. However, some scholars also pointed out weaknesses. Even if the brain of a healthy conscious person, when imagining playing sports, activates a certain area in the cerebral cortex, it doesn't mean that activating the same area will definitely produce a similar consciousness. The same brain region can be activated in various different situations. In other words, we still don't fully understand what consciousness truly is and how it is formed. This also means that locked-in syndrome still lacks a standard treatment method to this day. The cure rate is also very low. Conventional electrode treatment can stimulate muscle responses, helping patients recover some basic muscle functions. Other treatment methods are often only symptomatic, applied case by case. So, has locked-in syndrome truly become an incurable disease? Let's return to the case of Martin shared initially. In Martin's autobiography titled, Ghost Boy, My Escape from a Life Locked Inside My Own Body. In the early years of his illness, his mother quit her job to care for him full-time at home. But gradually, she felt extremely hopeless seeing her son seemingly making no progress. You must die. That night, Martin and his mother took a large amount of sleeping pills to commit suicide. Fortunately, they were rescued in time and survived. After surviving, Martin's mother decided to return to a normal life. No longer caring for Martin, but focusing her energy on his siblings, even planning to send him away, but his father disagreed. His father said Martin was part of the family, and they must all live together. From then on, the tall man with a wrinkled face always meticulously cared for Martin's daily life. Every morning, Martin's father would carry him to the car, take him to the daycare center, and then go to work. 8 hours later, after work, his father would pick Martin up from the daycare center and bring him home. He cooked for him, changed his clothes, cut his nails, bathed him, and turned him every 2 hours at night for fear of bed sores. And so, day after day, year after year, to care for Martin, his father gave up promotion opportunities. As for the daytime hours at the daycare center, for Martin, it was a series of nightmares. S mouthed and yelled. They also beat the boy. Besides physical violence, there was sexual abuse. Some staff took Martin to secluded places, caressed his body, and did unspeakable things. All of this drove Martin nearly insane, until an angel appeared, Vienna. Vienna would often massage Martin's joints, relax his muscles, and in her free time, tell him her stories. Initially, Vienna had no idea Martin was conscious. But over time, she noticed that when hearing interesting stories, Martin's eyes lit up, as if wanting to respond to her. Vienna reported this discovery to Martin's parents. With a mix of belief and doubt, they took Martin to the Victoria University Communication Center in South Africa for a series of tests. They placed Martin's hand on a sensor and gave commands, asking him to control a needle to stop at a specific position. When certain words were spoken, they asked him to use his gaze to focus on symbols on the screen. Finally, after 9 years of living like a ghost, Martin proved to the world that he was conscious. Martin recalled and said that during his 9 years as a ghost, one experience terrified him the most, which was when his father took him swimming in the sea. As the seawater washed over his lower body, fear overwhelmed his entire heart. If his father had let go at that moment, he would have been swept away immediately with no ability to resist. Perhaps sensing Martin's fear, his father rubbed his forehead and said, "Martin, Dad is here with you. I won't let anything happen to you." On the way home, Martin's father stopped at a convenience store to buy things, leaving Martin alone in the car. At that moment, a passerby looked at Martin with a friendly smile. That smile made Martin feel an incredible warmth. Also on that day, Martin felt he had regained hope for life. After returning from the communication center, Martin's parents bought him a communication aid device. Just like typing on a keyboard, it could convert to speech. His parents also continuously added new words to the device, helping Martin express himself better. Along with continuous therapy, Martin began to gain control over parts of his body. He taught himself to read and write, enrolled in a university course in web design, and graduated in 2013. Compared to all that, what made Martin most proud was finding the woman he loved. In 2008, Martin met Joanna, his sister's friend. Joanna was a social work volunteer from England. From their first meeting, she was attracted by Martin's radiant smile. The two exchanged contact information. Initially, they chatted via Skype, from food preferences, music, to the difficulties Martin had experienced. In 2009, Joanna and Martin held hands and entered the wedding hall, and now live in England. Although Martin still cannot speak again, he has been able to take care of his own life. Martin is now a freelance web designer and best-selling author. Outside of work hours, he drives his life around for outings or camping. Patients recovering from locked-in syndrome like Martin are not rare, though not common everywhere. Richard Moss, a former police officer who had a stroke, is one of the best recovered locked-in syndrome patients I know. He not only takes care of his own life but also recovered his ability to speak. And his mobility reached 95% compared to before the illness. Another case is Victoria Allen, a famous American reporter and host, with the support of her family. She took 4 years to free her body from the imprisoned state. As mentioned, locked-in syndrome is like a prolonged sleep paralysis. So how can this phenomenon be explained? A reasonable hypothesis based on the parallel universe or multiverse theory. According to this theory, the three-dimensional space we live in is not unique. There are many other spaces or universes existing parallel to us. Simply understood, because they are parallel and do not intersect, we cannot access them in the usual way. We cannot use the naked eye to observe, perceive, or access these spaces, but can only indirectly connect in some special cases, or observe directly based on subjective experience rather than objective. For example, 2 recent episodes about portion fields and superpowers by Sun Julin also mentioned this issue. If interested, you can learn more. According to this theory, the ghostly images in sleep paralysis experiences are not creatures from this space, but creatures from other parallel spaces, and dreams are the bridge to those worlds. So in locked-in syndrome, is the patient's soul locked in another space? Theoretically, the existence of parallel universes is feasible, as physicist Stephen Hawking and many other scientists affirm. Overall, for cases recovering from locked-in syndrome, besides support from relatives and friends, along with active therapy, the most important thing is love and compassion. Remember the unconditional love of Martin's father, the care of caregiver Vienna, and the warm smile of the passerby that helped him regain hope. Sometimes you will realize how helpful your care and love can be. So what do you think? Through many topics explored, in your opinion, what causes sleep paralysis or locked-in syndrome? See you in the comments section below the video to share with everyone. Our sharing today ends here. If you found the video helpful, don't forget to share it with friends. Thank you very much. Goodbye and see you again. Please subscribe to the Gian and I Go channel so you know this exciting videos.
If the signal hooked you, subscribe and catch the next ripple.